Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Patrick Flynn. Thank you so much for joining with me. I'm so excited for today. One of my favorite series that I've been planning for and working on for a long period of time here is called our Living Hormoniously series here. Thank you so much as I took the reference to who was actually going to name it. Thank you so much for putting all the input there. I'm excited. I can honestly say I'm excited. I'm very excited. I'm so excited because it's a topic that I actually built my whole career on today, okay? So what I'm gonna do is this, we're gonna go through some intense things today. We're gonna go through a lot of things, it's kind of funny. I always follow structure so you guys understand things, but I want to also throw in some actually clinical pearls. And when I start to actually really review this series, I could literally teach you probably 12 to 20 hours on this stuff alone, just going through. So now what I had to do is I had to break it up into segments for you guys, because I want you to, every time I actually teach, I want you to be able to apply it to your life. That's why today, once again, our topic on the Living Hormoniously series here is we're going to start with the steroid hormones. But once again, as you know, one of the things I've always said when it comes to doctors, when people actually go to the doctor, they may actually be more confused when they leave than when they went in, because they use big words. They use things that they don't understand. Well, no joke. So today we're going to talk about, as you can see, understanding the basics. And we're going to cover one of the most basic things in hormones. But even speaking this past weekend, right after the seminar, right after the great hormone connection seminar, what had happened is this: multiple women, I would say, let's underestimate, 5 to 10 came up to me and explained to me something their doctor was doing. And it contributes to massive hormone loss. Yet, for example, it really had nothing to do why she was taking for hormone problems that way. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to continuously break down things and actually go to the most basic things, so that when you're done watching this series, that you're going to have such great understanding of hormones, not be clinically confused, really be able to start with episode 1. And we're going to do this in a series because we're going to build upon these. This may take me 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 months to get through, okay? We're gonna do this every Thursday, all right? So every Thursday at 4 p.m., we're gonna run the series that way. It will actually go up on our YouTube channel. Nancy will actually post the YouTube link that way. So if you don't catch it live on Facebook, it will live there. But what happens is it can go up on our YouTube and actually follow the series. And I'm gonna tell you right now, start with number 1 and go all the way till I'm done. I can honestly tell you though, I don't know how many episodes it could be. It could be 18 to 20 to 40. It's based on, for example, your understanding, what you get out of it. And what I want you to do is I want you to get so much out of this that when you're done, okay, after every episode, you know a step to take action with. It's worse because here's what happens. Most people, when they go to a doctor, they don't even know what steps to take. They do the worst thing they possibly do for their own health care. You know what it is? They're dependent on listening to some other doctor. What do I mean? If a doctor doesn't explain things to you and you're stuck only taking his advice because he's an expert, it's bad. We don't do that here at the Wellness Way clinics, okay? We like to explain things. So I'm gonna explain things in great detail for you. So let's start. Let's really understand what we're gonna cover here, because once again, it's kind of nice because you can cross-reference. Even just on Google, you can cross-reference everything I teach you. The one thing is this, because of how I think and how hormones and they present to me that way and what I do with them, for example, gives us a uniqueness that way. So here we go. Steroid hormones. Understanding the basics. Well, what's the most basic thing? What are they? What are the steroid hormones? So they're well defined. And once again, I kind of define this because there's a part in this definition that is never used. It's not. And that's why, for example, when there's medications used, once again, there can be massive negative side effects. So it's really interesting. Medical research, okay, things that when you look at the side effects that happen when they study drugs, they understand this. They understand these pathways, but they're always trying to change them and manipulate them. What I'm going to do is try to show you how to get them normal, but then on top of it, I'm going to show you how some of your problems are coming from areas you don't even realize they're coming from that way. So let's define what a steroid hormone is, okay? Steroid hormones are a group, okay? Let's stop there. That's what's going to take so long. There is a significant amount of hormones. I can tell you right now, the first hormone I'm going to go to is a hormone called pregnenolone. Most of you guys have never even heard that. but it's so significant that one of the biggest things that contributes to is actually Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Now you're like, hold the phone. I know people that have had that condition, but have never had this hormone measured, okay? That's gonna be our first hormone we go through next week. And I say, Doc, wait, next week? Yes, because to even get to the hormones to understand what to do with them, you have to understand the basics of them that way. And that's what we're covering today, okay? So now, here we go. So steroid hormones are a group of chemical messaging compounds. Let's say that again. It's a group of chemical messaging compounds that way. Okay, so what do I mean? If you want to really equate where the term hormone came from, it actually stands for messenger. All right, so that's an important thing. It's really important because once again, if the message, for example, is messed up, there's actually going to be hormonal imbalances that way. It's why, for example, a hormone like estradiol, once again, we're going to have a whole section just on that. It's actually, for example, if the message delivered is, for example, inappropriate and it's too high, what ends up happening, it could develop cancer. On the flip side, if the message, for example, is inappropriate and the message is low, you can actually have depression and a bunch of other things that way. You can actually put a woman into menopause too early. See, so what happens is this. They're all messengers. They're floating around. That's why you have to be very careful. That's why you have to be very careful with this. A lot of people, for example, take synthetic hormones. So what you really think about is this. So I tell people, instead of actually saying the term hormone, use it's actually its root word. It's actually a messenger. It's actually a message coming that way. Okay, so remember that. Because as you know this, once again, as these signals actually have become depleted that way, it's really going to cause some major disruptions within the body. And every organ needs messages. It needs how to work that way. So here we go. Produced. Now here's we go. Produced by the male and female sex organs. Okay, the gonads, the whole gonadal system that way. Once again, even though, for example, we're talking about hormones, we will distinguish when we go through them the effects on males and females. Let me give you an example. Obviously, for example, testosterone dominates with us men. We all know that. That's kind of really basic that way. A lot of women don't realize that they actually have testosterone and they need it. It's just not to the extent that men need it that way. It can have the same kind of characteristics. Let me give you an example, all right? If women's testosterone gets way too high, they can have facial hair. I literally had to deal with a woman actually that looked like she had a beard, all right? And because why? The message is off. But if you actually do things that cause that messenger to be off, there's going to be a result. It's going to do its job. The tissue will listen if it gets the message. It doesn't mean it's the right message for that person, but because a woman is not supposed to have a beard, and the sad part is it's not really that funny if you're the woman that's suffering from it, and there's women that, for example, that have a greater 5 o'clock shadow than I do. Inappropriate message there, okay? What I mean by inappropriate is the fact that those chemical messages, for example, are abnormal, and guess what? The lady has a beard, okay? Second of all, male and female sex organs, the gonads, all right? So once again, the woman's ovaries, the man's testicles that way. Those are their gonads. That's what they produce from. They produce some of the very similar hormones that way, but they actually have different functions in each one of the body, all right? Here we go. Hormones of the adrenal glands. Holy macro. So steroid hormones actually involve also adrenal hormones. This is where, for example, I believe the Hormone Connection Seminar has gotten its great uniqueness, is medicine in its classification separates everything. Let me give you a real life example. We know there's a heart specialist, we know there's a foot specialist, we know there's a kidney specialist, we know there's a GI specialist. The one thing about that is this, they separate into the parts but don't realize that the messengers can affect all those organs the same messenger, okay? So the hormone can actually have effect on each one of those tissues. But what they do is they classify them into parts. And they forget about the interconnection of it that way. I'm going to show you in great detail through the weeks of how the adrenal glands, aka our stress gland, actually not only can actually use the same hormones, but steal them away because they're all steroid hormones. It's kind of interesting. The people who suffer the most from that is women. That's why if you've seen my steroid hormone, you've seen my hormone connection seminar, I would tell you right now, women actually are affected mostly by stress, mental stress. and that will deplete their steroid hormones. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to statistically show you and how this happens and how women, for example, have to understand that this is going to mess up their messages through their whole body just by what happens between their 2 ears. And I say, Doc, guys don't have that problem. You're right. Guys are not affected by stress. The messenger can actually happen. They can have stress, but certain hormones that are actually used in combination with it don't have much effect on them. But I will tell you this. Guys will actually mess up their hormones by sugar. See, so I tell people, women will kill themselves by mental stress. Men will kill themselves by sugar. And I'm going to show you how that is hormonally. I'm going to show you how you can reverse those processes too. Here's one, for example, that they forget about all the time. The last hormone, for example, in the steroid hormone pathway, is actually involved with the kidneys, our mineralocorticoids. It's why, for example, that not only can actually stress and steroid hormones and all of them affect, our growth and our development, how we do stuff, but also changes our blood pressure. It also changes our bone density. It does everything, for example, that is going to actually change that hormone, okay? It's why, if you look, one of the major effects of certain medications that mess with steroid hormones actually affect the kidney so much. And we're going to get into that. Okay, remember that, because before this episode is done, I'm going to show you why that does happen that way. All right. So these are steroid hormones. Let me read it again. Steroid hormones are a group of chemical messaging compounds produced by male and female sex organs, the gonads, hormones of the adrenal glands, and kidneys, the mineralocorticoids that way. They are actually just a very big group of messengers that affect so many tissues of the body. That's the big part. See, when a lot of people think I'm going to talk about hormones, they're thinking about male and female hormones and how they relate to actually maybe their cycle, their testosterone levels and their growth or muscle development or steroids or erections. No, here's what happens. They affect everything, okay? From everywhere, from the sex organs, but also to the kidneys and also to how we even deal with stress that way. So we're going into great detail. Now, what is the most basic thing? So when I was kind of going through this, I'm like, all right, once again, material like crazy. I mean, hours upon hours. I teach this to doctors constantly that way. Where do we start? You're saying, because there's so many. Which hormone do I start with? I'm like, hold the phone. Before I can even start with the steroid hormones, I actually have to create the building blocks for it. It's kind of interesting because if you look, we're going to do a whole series once again on the thyroid hormones that way. But even the thyroid hormones itself, you have to look and go, well, how is it built? You know what I'm saying? How is it made? What do we need to produce it that way? So I want to set the stage because this relates to the seminar I taught on last Saturday, where I had multiple women, 5 to 10 women come up to me, and this was one of the biggest disruptors. They were taking something that was altering this, and they wondered why no matter what they did, their hormones were low. And here's what it is. So part number 2, here we go. What are they? Okay, here's all the hormone cascades, so here we are. All steroid hormones are derived from cholesterol. Let me say that again. All steroid hormones, okay? Now people say, Doc, a thyroid hormone is not a steroid hormone, so it's actually not use cholesterol. I know, I see a lot of people say all hormones. No, it's not really true. All steroid hormones, all of our sex hormones, all of our adrenal hormones, all of our actually, kidney hormones, all those things are actually derived. So now get this, picture this, guys. If I want to make testosterone here, I will need some amino acids, some specific ones, okay? And then I'll need cholesterol. Now I know what you're thinking right away. But wait, Doc, my doctor said my cholesterol is high and I need to lower it, okay? And that cholesterol is bad for me. Well, I do want you to do this, okay? Because they'll say, my cardiologist said. All right, guys, sometimes, when I tell you things, sometimes it's hard to believe, and then I have to say something very abrupt to you to get my point across. Like some of you guys, for example, who, especially males, they like to use the references of my cardiologist said or my endocrinologist said. Okay, guys, let's step back and look at this. We're at an all-time high for heart disease. It's getting worse every year. We're at an all-time high for cancer. We're at an all-time high for impotence. And I'll show you the relationship. We're at an all-time high for fertility problems. We're at an all-time high for all these problems. And the doctors that we are dominant in and control it are the same people that people come and say to me, my doctor said, my cardiologist said. I don't care what your cardiologist said. Do you understand? I don't care what your endocrinologist said, because here's what I mean. Most of you guys, for example, when I talk about all things derived by cholesterol, they have trained you. They have gotten you. I'm not kidding, guys. Think about this. I'm going to show you an analogy I use all the time. When I actually do this, when I actually look at, people and they come to me and say, my doctor said my cholesterol is bad for me. Cholesterol is not bad for you. It's a derivative. It is a building block for every steroid hormone in the body. So let's do this. No cholesterol, guess what? You will have depleted hormones. So go back to this past weekend. Young ladies, these ladies were coming to me, actually most of them were menopausal, and they're like, listen, they're like, I'm actually going to the doctor, and they said I have to be on hormones because they're so low, but they don't know why they're low. You know what my first question is to them? Are you taking a statin medication, a cholesterol altering medication? I don't even want to call it a cholesterol drug. Now let me explain why. Statin drugs, for example, in my opinion, and remember, I always share my opinion to you, but statin drugs are the second biggest farce in medicine there is. Dr. Greg Abbott, one of our docs here who actually loves the cardiovascular realm, he did a wonderful seminar on cholesterol. It is a medical scapegoat. They said, well, my doctor actually put me on statin drugs. When I started practice 20 years ago, do you understand, barely any women were ever on a statin drug. Barely ever, okay? Because one of the major side effects actually is what? Low hormones. What's another major side effect of them? Kidney problems, renal disease. It's right on the box. Because why? It alters the steroid hormones, and what does it do? It alters the function of those glands. So no messenger, no function that way. Actually, if you think of it this way, we talk about impotence itself. When you start to reduce your steroid hormones and testosterone, your estrogens and all those sex hormones that we have, for example, you lower those cholesterol, you're going to actually create more impotence. It's one of the major side effects there. Now, people say, but no, my doctor said, and according to the American Heart Association, wait, let's do this. So what I did, I always find this very interesting. Everything I talk about is very well medically documented. So you don't have to believe me. Just go look up the same references I do that way. It's really funny. People say, Doc, what research do you have? I got a ton of it. But you have to be kind of a moron to realize that if you're going to build a house and say, I'm not going to use any lumber, well, then you have to use some substance like concrete or something that way, but you need building blocks. So here's the thing. And so I went on to the American Heart Association website and pulled this off for you. I love this. Direct quote. I actually showed you the picture it's on so you can go there. So let's just read the simplicity of this. Okay, cholesterol is a waxy substance. And actually, it's really funny, guys. Remember this. I hear this all the time. Cholesterol is a fat. No, cholesterol is not a fat. It's a sterol. It's a waxy substance, but it's not a fat. Okay? As people say, well, you need to eat a lot of fats for hormones. That's not really true. You need to eat cholesterols that way. And remember, you don't really actually need to eat a lot of cholesterol. Okay? Because there are a lot of great things that have really good cholesterols that way. But your liver makes the majority of it. And that's why I talked about just before, to bring that around, I said, listen, statin drugs are not cholesterol-lowering drugs. Statin drugs manipulate the function of your liver. Let me say that again. Statin drugs manipulate the function of your liver for your liver to produce your cholesterol. So it stops your normal function of your liver to work properly. Think about that. But in the process, guess what it does? It also alters coenzyme Q10 for your heart. It's kind of funny. One of the major side effects of cholesterol drugs, heart disease. Who said so? They did. The people who made the drug. It's just that you hear this. My doctor said I have to lower my cholesterol. Here, please, do me a favor. Tell your doctor he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay? Look at the side effects and what it does that way. So what they do, for example, is they say, listen, you got to take this because of this. And they'll use fear. You say, and like I said, and if you continue on those pathways that they want you to do, you're going to end up just like they talk about. Sick like everybody else. All right? So it's a waxy substance. It's really not a fat. But I love this. Right here. It's not bad. It's not bad. There is no such thing as bad cholesterol. And this whole concept of LDL, which we're not even talking about cholesterol, LDL bad is ridiculous. LDL, HDL, and all the other particles are made by the liver. Okay? Cholesterol is made by the liver. It's actually, once again, you really don't even need to eat it to have normal cholesterol levels that way. But I love this. It's not bad, but here we go. Here's the best part. Your body needs it to build cells. Not only the fact that all your steroid hormones come from cholesterol, it's a building block for every cell. The majority of your cholesterol for hormones, believe it or not, is actually made and used for your brain. Your brain actually uses more cholesterol than any organ of the body that way. What does it do? It uses to produce not only its cells, but also the hormones for your brain to function. That's why if you look, dementia, Alzheimer's, all the major, for example, conditions that we are freaking out about today, my first question is, are you taking a medication that actually alters your liver and reduces your cholesterol? Because it's going to affect how you produce one of the major hormones we're going to go over next week, pregnenolone, for the brain. Not only the fact is, it actually reduces your production of cells itself. So understand, steroid hormones are produced from cholesterol. You need it. So let me make a statement, and Nancy, maybe you can quote me on this. If you are taking a statin drug, there is no way you can have normal hormone balance. I kind of made that, I kind of talked on that a little slow, so he'd quote me on that way. Dr. Flynn, the hormone whisperer, will say this again. Quote me on this. If you are taking a statin medication, a statin drug, there is no way that you can ever maintain or achieve hormone balance. Change a little bit, I'll throw a little bit more in there. For our Instagram, we can actually maybe alter a little bit more that way, but get my point? Because why? The basic concept of a hormone is you need the backbone and ingredients to produce it that way. It's cholesterol dependent. Guys, I'm speaking to you guys because you guys are the major guys that take it. Now people say, Doc, but then why does my doctor still have this false narrative that way? It's the biggest money-making drug over the last 40 years. Over the last 40 years. Let me say that again. Over the last 40 years, if not longer, statin drugs have been this fallacy, lower cholesterol. And you know what's really funny? Lower cholesterol hurts as you go up. Once again, I encourage you, Fancy Nancy's going to put the link for Dr. Greg Abbott's Cholesterol, the Medical Scapegoat in there. Watch that 2-hour talk. It will change your life. Because he will actually give you real science, as your doctor is not, as your cardiologist is not, as your endocrinologist is not. And here's the point. There is no way, it's impossible to achieve it when you actually take a statin drug. It's quite interesting. The same company that makes a statin drug also makes an erection drug, an impotent drug. They create the problem and then they have the solution for your problem that way. Man, that is a fantastic business model. You create the destruction over a false narrative that way. Guys, just understand, you cannot achieve or maintain hormonal balance if you're taking the statin medication. Every one of those ladies, that 5 to 10 women that I spoke about at last Saturday's conference that way, came up to me and said, we can't get it, our hormones are always low, okay? And they thought it was because of their age. Their doctors told them it was because of their age, okay? Well, it's quite interesting. It's interesting because this is very common everywhere, not only in our clinics here today, but also across the country. And I kind of funny, because then when they actually do the right things, reduce and get off their statin drug, guess what happens? And their hormones actually, go to and maintain a normal hormone balance. I said, look, thank God you've gotten younger. And they laugh and they say, Doc, I'm actually older. Exactly, it has nothing to do with your age. Maintain a normal hormone balance. You can do that from the day you die, to the day you live, to the day you die. That's what's supposed to happen. But nobody's teaching people how to actually keep hormones normal. And then we moved into this fallacy. That's why it's kind of interesting. When I started practice so long ago, they didn't give women statin drugs. They really didn't, because they are much more dependent on hormones. Okay, that's why women actually have healthcare-wise, actually statistically, actually suffer from more conditions, because they have a higher amount of more hormones. We have a very significant amount of testosterone, but my need for the estrogens and progesterone is very low. But guess what happens? And there's a significant amount more of them than there is actually just testosterone. So my need for amount of hormones is actually depleted, okay, compared to like a woman. I don't need a lot of progesterone, she does. My wife needs a lot of progesterone, I don't. We just need a significant amount of testosterone from guys. That's why guys, honestly, a side note that way, we kind of have it easy. We really do, okay? All the women are sitting here shaking their head going, dang, you know what I'm saying? It's true. We do have it easy as far as a hormonal balance that way. The sad part is, because men are so sugar addicted, that what happens is it affects their heart. That's why they still take most of the statin drugs, because of a false narrative. And then they end up with hormonal problems because they end up with low testosterone because they are taking a statin medication. So once again, when you first step back, okay, and you actually, for example, are actually having and looking how to maintain basic hormonal balance, it starts with cholesterol. You need to drive that in your head. So here's what happens. If you are looking, number one, to actually achieve hormone balance, your first step is one of the easiest tests to do. Any doctor will do it. You run a lipid panel. Let me say that again. You run a lipid panel. The basic aspect will actually run your cholesterol and actually all of your other markers that way. Now, to give you an example, I had a woman, for example, come in to see one of our docs here in Green Bay. And don't quote me exactly, but I think they saw Dr. Jason. And Dr. Jason came out of the room because they had their labs there that were already done by the other doctors. But obviously they're sick and they end up here because they just don't like what's going on. They're on a ton of medications. And all of a sudden, Dr. Jason comes out and he's giggling. He goes, take a look at this. And their cholesterol levels for the woman was at 110. Now, here's what happens. She was at 110 and she wasn't taking a statin drug. She wasn't. So she wasn't medicated. But here's her doctor's response. I am so excited because your cholesterol is so low. Okay? Now, what they've beaten into that woman's head, that guess what? That they were so excited. Well, what we found out, for example, is that she actually had an autoimmune process with her liver, and it was causing some damage in her liver, and therefore she couldn't metabolize and produce her own cholesterol, so her hormone deficiencies would stem from that. So after Dr. Jason started to actually correct that and get the liver back to its normal function that way, her cholesterol levels went up to like 190. Her doctor freaked out, yet all of her hormones went back to normal. Isn't that crazy? Now, I'm not crazy as far as the care. The craziness is the doctor was freaking out because her levels went up dramatically. Guys, let me give you a simple analogy. If I cut my finger right now, my cholesterol levels have to elevate actually for it to repair. If Fancy Nancy Groozy is sitting behind that desk and I get very upset and I go crazy and I go over and attack her, her kidney hormones and her blood pressure, her steroid hormones for her to fight me off, going to fight or flight, her actually stress hormones coming for adrenals has to elevate. What has to happen to her cholesterol levels? They have to go up. See, if you're menopausal, so if you're in menopause right now, it's very common for your cholesterol levels to elevate because why? Because sometimes you guys end up with actually very fatigued adrenals, very fatigued ovaries, and you still need hormone, and it gets too low during menopause, and your body says, I need to make more hormone, and it floods cholesterol into your system. Now, because of the stinking thinking of your endocrinologist or cardiologist or even your general practitioner, they want to lower that instead of asking why. Trust me, you can't eat enough cholesterol to make your levels go psychotically high. Let me say that again. I mean, I know people that eat raw eggs, which, for example, have a significant amount of cholesterol in there. Thank God, okay? It's needed. But the idea is this. You could be pounding those things down all day long, and guess what? You're not going to drive it up so significantly that it's going to hurt you, all right? But the idea is when cholesterol levels drive up like that, what you really have to understand is ask the question why. And it's usually because the body's either under stress, or actually has some major hormonal deficiency. You're going to see a very big correlation, guys, between low hormones and cholesterol going elevated. Let me say that again. Quote me on this, Nancy, on this one. There's a direct relationship. There's a direct relationship when you start to see low hormones and a higher elevation of cholesterol. Now, once again, I do like a certain level of cholesterol. I don't want to see somebody at a level of 400. I don't want to see a person at a level at 600. But I'm not going to naturally drop it down with red rice yeast, which is just a way of medical thinking, or even drop it down with statin. I'm going to find out what demand is on the body. Is it under stress? Is the stress hormones low? Are the other steroid hormones low? Did you cut your finger? Do you see what I'm saying? It's all these things, for example, that lead to hormonal balance that way. And these are a way to look at it. This is probably the most basic concept that we can run with on this way without actually, with what we have today in such a major hormonal deficient problems, okay? Now, next, this is the exciting part. This is what's going to take so long, okay? Number 3, hormones involve multiple organs. See, when I talk about, hormones, most people just think, for example, about, once again, their ovaries, their testicles, their thyroid. It's much more involved with that. I said something very key. You're going to find out that a lot of steroids hormones are produced in the organ and they go to another organ and convert and actually become what they're supposed to do. Okay? Now it's going to blow your mind away a little bit. So that's why when we have doctors that separate their professions and look at it and say, I'm a liver doctor, I'm a heart doctor, I'm a foot doctor, those are well needed. They really are. Because why? Because if there's an emergency with those organs, you want somebody that specializes them. That's the benefit of medicine. That's the benefit of what they do. But to really understand the body and how to get things back to normal, there's no specialist. Let me say it again. There's no specialist that can get any organ back to normal individually. Who? Nancy. That's a good one too. There's no specialist that can get an organ back to normal, even the one they specialize in. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're a thyroid specialist. Let's say you're an endocrinologist. This is the biggest mistake that happens all the time. We actually know that, for example, that when, here, just had this, okay? I won't use her full name, but I know her dad quite well. But there's this young lady, her name was Alyssa, all right? She actually contacted us because she's in her early 20s, and she found out she has Graves' disease. Her heart was racing dramatically. Actually, her thyroid hormones were extremely elevated. And because, once again, it is really interesting, Graves is not a thyroid problem. Let me say that again. Graves or Hashimoto's is not a thyroid problem. It's an immune problem. It's an autoimmune problem. And so therefore, the immune system, for example, actually changed and started affecting the gland. So what they did was this. The only thing that endocrinologists actually focused is on the gland. Well, because they can't give you something to actually, affect the production besides maybe a steroid, and that was their course of care, it was to give them radioactive iodine and rip it out. No joke. Now, here's the funny part, and I will say this, and this is not an arrogant statement, but here's what I want you to understand. Because I have no problem standing up for what's right and what can be done, and that's why we're doing this educational series, is this. I told the dad, he came here with their daughter, we went through stuff, and I said, now ask him these questions, and it's really funny. So they came back just a couple days ago, and the dad looked at me and said, the endocrinologist found out I was working with you, and made some comments, not in a negative way, said, okay, this, but don't tell him what I said, because he's going to actually turn and actually, it's kind of funny, he's actually going to actually explain things and actually turn what I say, for example, and it's not going to make sense. And the guy's like, what do you mean? He's like, so he goes, well, stick with them, but doesn't understand. The only thing I can do is rip it out. Not a joke. It's kind of funny, actually. But what he was is because I have no problem educating and explaining people in great detail what Graves was, their care makes no sense. Honestly, the next time a general practitioner or a cardiologist or anybody actually wants to put you on a statin drug, look at them and actually ask them. Now what they'll do, just like the endocrinologist did at first until they found out they were working with our clinic, was the fact that they drive everything by fear. Guys, don't govern your healthcare choices by fear. Once again, it's one of the reasons why I'm doing this series, so you can actually reference this. Heck, I've said this before. Take our videos and bring them right to your doctor. Tell them to go to our YouTube channel. Do you understand? Because everything I teach you, you can cross-reference massively just by this wonderful thing called Google. You just have to know what to look for, okay? See, most people, what they do is they pull something up on Google and they have some doctor's opinion. If I ever give you an opinion, I'll tell you it's an opinion, okay? Most of the things I talk about are all just basic physiology and how the body works. That's why it's so easy to reference on. It's just that they don't think that way. This is how we think, all right? So understand, guys, the whole hormonal system involves multiple organs. Just like Hashimoto's and Graves was never a thyroid problem. It's a major immune issue that way, okay? So there's that massive interconnection. But it's kind of neat. If you were to just do right now, if you were to actually just Google search, okay, do this for me, guys. Google search steroid hormone pathway. It's quite interesting because I'll back up here, and these are some of the graphs that you can find on any medical textbook, on any graph, and it's really interesting. Just as I posted here, I threw another one on there, and it's kind of funny because steroid hormone synthesis from the adrenals, it all bases on cholesterol. Ladies, let me give you an example. You can't even adapt hormonally to anything if your cholesterol levels are low. Think about that. You can't adapt. That means if you have a stressful day, you need a lot of cholesterol. You really need a lot of cholesterol. That's the big thing. So, oh my goodness, Ross is back there as always. Guys, as you know, I know a lot of people do professional videos. Believe it or not, I put out bullet points, and actually then I have an idea what I want to reference that way. So I have no problem with questions. Actually, I can always see there's a ton of stuff that way. Oh my goodness, there is a lot of stuff on here, Nancy. And my editor-in-chief, Fancy Nancy Gruzy right there, absolutely amazing. We have our interns, we have our wonderful writer, Dawn, who's back there, because she's gonna take all this and she's also gonna put it into the written word. Just like I hope you guys do me a favor. I am so honored and humbled that I put the picture of my cover of the Hormone Connection book, and you guys, and I asked for your opinion, and I asked for your input, and you guys have given me some great input. So my live videos, or even my YouTube videos, I know, for example, it is, I tell people, I like lives because I don't have to be structured, but so Nancy, she does have actually some questions. I will repeat the question just so, because you won't be able to hear her say it. So what question do you have?
Two questions. Does cholesterol always change daily?
Does cholesterol always change daily? I love that question. I absolutely, who answered that question? Or who asked that? Jill Wiedemeyer. Hello there, young lady. You're awesome. Do me a favor, Jill. Actually, send Nancy your address. I'm going to send you a free t-shirt because that is a beautiful question. Okay? Send her a free Wellness Way t-shirt. Here, Jill, let me ask you a question as a woman. Okay? I know your family. You guys are wonderful. But just even imagine this. Just being a woman, let me ask you a question. Is your stress, your mental stress levels, the same every day? Fancy Nancy Gruzy, even though you get to work with me and Ross all day, which causes no stress. No stress. Dawn, I know even Ross is behind there laughing. Dawn, amazing writer. But let me ask you a question, okay? And you ladies by nature are very peaceful, wonderful ladies. But would you agree with me? Having husbands, having children, coming to work with us, would you agree with me that day to day your stress levels, so let's just take mental stress levels, change, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Your cholesterol levels are going to change every day. They're supposed to. Is there a recent a range that they will fall within? Yes. But Jill, if somebody right now, tonight, or and it's 10 o'clock at night, breaks into your house, I expect your cholesterol levels to skyrocket. Why? Because you need it to produce the hormones to deal with the stressor. Okay? So yes, your cholesterol levels will change on a daily basis. That's why this concept, for example, of keeping everybody the same all the time is absolutely ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. That's not how the body works. Okay? Now, flip on this side. If, for example, you come in contact with a bacteria, a urinary tract infection, your cholesterol levels are going to have to go up to deal with the infection in your kidneys. Okay? Dumb example, but let me just say it. If somebody accidentally, a guy gets kicked in the testicles, his testosterone levels has to change, so his cholesterol levels. So he gets kicked in the groin area, his cholesterol levels have to go up to repair that area. If you cut your finger, my goodness, and then Jill, wonderful question. I love that question because yes, it changes. Because why? The messages that come into your body change every day, every single day. That's why they're different. That's why some days, I kind of giggle about this. So let me step back. Thank you for the question. I'm going to run this. If you take 100 milligrams of levothyroxine every day, the medication will be used and force your body to do a certain amount every day, that amount. Sometimes that 100 milligrams of medication is too little for that day, too much, or not enough based on the demands of your body. They're not the same every day. So that's why you can take a medication every day and still feel dramatically horrible. It may take the edge off, just like a psychiatric drug. It may take an edge off, you might need that bad, but guess what? It still does what? It still changes every day. Jill, fantastic question. Now, next question, we had two questions.
Megan is wondering, do things like meditation and yoga have a dramatic impact on reducing stress?
Megan asked the question, does meditation, yoga, and what else?
Just those two. Does
Yeah, does meditation and yoga have an effect on your cholesterol levels or hormones, or both?
Reducing stress.
On reducing stress, of course it does. Guys, one of the simplest things to do, you want to see hormonal balance actually start to achieve even better. It's quite interesting. Get your adrenal glands above your heart. What's the most common and well-known pose in yoga today? Downward dog. Now, let me give you even a cooler thing. If you want to reduce your stress levels, if you want to help your adrenals rebuild, if you want to see less demand on the cholesterol, if you want to see less demand on your hormonal system, use an inversion table before you go to bed at night. Never got that advice, did you? Doc, my cholesterol's high. Use an inversion table. You know what I'm saying? No joke. It's quite interesting. Let me explain something so cool. See, this is why I like lives, because it's not like structured this way. I get the thing. And during this series, we're gonna you guys just do that. We're gonna keep these questions coming. Here's what happens. Let me give you a little tidbit, okay? If you want to put your stress hormones elevated, do this. Elevate your head of your bed and sleep elevated a little bit. Guess what happens? Your heart has to work harder to get your blood up to the head. It's going to put stress on your body. One of the easiest ways to actually sleep better, but also reduce your stress levels while you're sleeping, sleep deeper, is take a 2x4 and put it at the foot of your bed so your head's below your heart. Your adrenals are above your heart. Your adrenals are above your head. That's why inversion, that's why yoga. Meditation is actually a great thing. Now, I know some people, I'm always gonna talk about this because the one thing that I am very proud about is I'm authentic, so I make fun of everybody, okay? I do. Nancy's like, yeah, you're not selective when you make fun of people, okay? Because people know I love my faith. But Christian people, knock it off. Because what happens if you say the word meditation, you give some root to some Chinese person that loves Satan, and then all of a sudden you don't do meditation. No, you don't have to bond to the earth and be a hippie like a lot of them. If you want to bond to the earth and be a hippie, I don't care. Okay, I know Nancy's like giving the hum, you know what I'm saying? It's okay, but the idea is this. If you just shut your lights off and sit back and clear your mind, and it would meditate, that's actually biblically, honestly, we're supposed to meditate on the Word of God that way. And it even uses that word. So yes, meditation, for example, is key. Who asked that again? Megan. Yes, inversion. Guys, I gave you some guys, I'm going to give you so many tidbits, so many clinical pearls that cost you nothing. That cost you nothing. Durham, I'm going to throw in different herbs and different things that are based on biochemistry in your labs, not based on, here, take this magic herb and everything's going to go away. Okay? So do we have any more questions? Because Nancy, that was absolutely amazing.
We do.
Here we go. We love it. Hey guys, thank you. And if you're watching live, please do me a favor, because we love responding to it. Please say hi to me. Please like and share this. And please let me know where you're from. Because the one thing that you guys probably all know if you watch me before, I love giving stuff away. And if you give me attention, I like to give stuff away. I love attention. Attention for the purpose of having influence, not to be famous. I'm not writing the hormone. I didn't even, here, to give you the truth, guys, people don't know this. The hormone book, you saw the cover, I've never read the book. I'm not going to. Dawn has read the book. Dawn has helped write it. Erin Walton, she helped write it. Guess what? I never read it. I'm never going to read my own book. Why? I don't care. You understand? I want to just get good information out for people that way, and I trust Dawn, and I trust Erin, I trust our team that they just hear my language and put it through a book. Okay, here we go, Nancy.
Ashley is wondering.
Ashley.
If you have high hormones, will that lower your cholesterol levels because of the high demand to make
Yes, it
those
can.
high levels?
So her question was, if you have high hormones, will it actually do what? Could it actually reduce your cholesterol levels? Yes, it can. It really can. Let me give you an example. Two organs work very synergistically together, okay? Meaning what? What happens is this. They talk to each other constantly, your thyroid and adrenals. Guess what happens? This is the mistake most doctors make, okay? If you look at some of the major side effects of thyroid medication, problems with your adrenals are one of the major side effects. Because if all of a sudden your adrenals go crazy, guess what happens? Your thyroid has to go down, otherwise it can induce a heart attack by your own hormones, okay? So therefore, guess what happens? If your hormones are very high, a lot of times your liver will suppress the release of cholesterol, will suppress the release of LDL, will even increase your HDL massively, once again, to do what? To actually grab onto the excess hormone. Actually, your body has great protective mechanisms. If your estrogen levels get very elevated, and we're going to cover this, but I'm giving you a little tidbit on this. Why do I say tidbit? Why did I ever get tidbit from? I think my mom said it all the time. Okay, Nancy's like, I don't know what the heck tidbit is. I'll give you a little clinical pearl. If you actually, one of the things when you measure female hormones, you have to measure something called the thyroid binding globulin. Why? Because, wait, you said the thyroid. Okay, yes. But if the estrogens, because there's multiple ones, elevate, especially estradiol, the thyroid globulin will grab onto it so it doesn't go crazy and do something bad in your body. See, that's why bad steroid hormones can cause a bad thyroid. Okay, there's the big interconnection. Most endocrinologists don't even measure thyroid binding globulin. If you don't know what it is, jump on Google. It's that simple. See, I always tell people, guess what? Medicine is so clueless because their testing and their thinking is incomplete. Not saying they haven't studied things, but guess what? People also thought the earth was flat at one time. That's what I tell people. People say, my doctor said this. Yes, your doctor has a PhD in flat earth. I gotta make fun of everybody that way. You say it, and you say, Doc, how can you sit there and say it? Great. Guess what? Come get the clinical results you've always desired. That's the part. I can stand here in great confidence that our wellness ways all over the country get great clinical results, and that's what I stand by. What do we got? One more question.
Casey, female, right?
Casey.
How do antidepressants affect hormones?
Oh, how do antidepressants affect hormones? Dramatically, okay? Actually, I'm gonna do a whole show on this. But let's do this, okay? Now, on the flip side, it can actually even have a normalizing effect on them. You understand? Here, let me give you an example, okay? If you use an SSRI, it's gonna sound quite funny. SSRIs do work. Don't think they don't, okay? They really do. That's why a person can take an SSRI and actually see their adrenal hormones actually get more normal, okay? Just understand, because the SSRI does take a, no, the SSRI does cause some other disruptions and side effects to other hormones, but you can see your stress hormones drop dramatically by taking them. I don't suggest you take an SSRI. There's much better ways, but there's a lot of people that do take some depression medication that way. So yes, I will go over that. That's actually part of the series. I'm gonna go over other medications, how they always affect the hormones. You're gonna notice a lot when we get to the adrenal hormones, okay? So yes, they do have a dramatic effect on it. Nancy, any more questions?
I was just going to ask what an SSRI is. But
What is an SSRI? It's the most common medication given for depression, or actually any mood disorder. It's called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, okay, an SSRI. So once again, one thing I love about Google, and once again, or any search engine, Yahoo, I don't care who it is, I have no ties to Google, okay? But the idea is this, is you can see a lot of these things just by actually researching them. It's just, guys, if I can get one thing into your head, what I'm going to do through this whole series is I'm gonna go through things you can look up in a book, but it's how you approach it. See, that's why everything I talk about is called the Wellness Way approach. So if I have a medical doctor that comes to me and says, I want to learn the Wellness Way approach, the first thing I teach him is not an herb, is not an adjustment, it's actually how he thinks. Because if he doesn't change how he thinks, he'll just use natural things like a drug. That's why you see the alternative movement is so big, yet we're continually getting sicker. Think about this. Herbs and all these people that are writing stuff, guess what happens? Selling a magic supplement or selling a magic powder and stuff like that, guess what happens? Heart disease and cancer and diabetes and other things are going up every single year. And the alternative movement has become big. But the alternative movement isn't much different in thinking. It's just, instead of using some drug that can have a massive negative side effect, guess what happens? They're using a natural thing. Different way of thinking that way, okay? Any other questions, Nancy? I get so excited about this, it's kind of cool, I could ramble on all day long with this. But the rambling, for example, comes from the constant watching people's lives change. See, my next hormone seminar, guys, is actually coming up in Lexington, Kentucky. Well, actually we have one here in Green Bay, but it's kind of a combination one. But we have one coming up. Search it out. The Hormone Connection Seminar is actually, now he teaches some of this that way, but also shows that, guess what? The steroid hormones have an effect on you physically, and we're going to go through a lot of that, but they also have a major effect on you psychologically. In men and women, their steroid hormones affect their brains differently. That's why men and women are what? Extremely different. And unless you understand that, there's going to be a major battle between the sexes. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, the Hormone Whisperer. I hope that the start of this amazing series that I get jacked up to sit and teach you every single week, not only are things that we put out, is going to change your thinking, and then it's going to change your life. You guys have a wonderful afternoon.